What on earth is going wrong with Sheffield United right now? Of course, last season they were so close to getting promotion to the Premier League within one game and picking up 92 points without the points deduction last season. And this season in the Championship, the first two games haven't looked promising at all under Ruben. So we're going to be taking a look at what's gone wrong so far and what they need to be doing the rest of the transfer window to kind of address the current issues they've got in their squad. If you're a Sheffield United fan, we do a lot of Championship content, daily Championship content, talking about your team pretty much every single day. So do hit that subscribe button. It only takes 1 second, and it will be very greatly appreciated. And do drop a like as well if you do go on to enjoy the video. So we got to start off with that game against Bristol City, where Sheffield United were at 6s and 7s defensively. For Sheffield United, it's a team that I've associated with under Chris Wilder in the Championship anyway, being very solid at the back and hard to beat. We saw that last season with Chris Wilder. They didn't play the best football, Sheffield United, but they were grinding out results week in, week out, especially in that spell towards kind of the middle part of the season. Obviously, at the back end of the season, they did fall away. But there was a spell where Sheffield United, as I say, they weren't pretty, they weren't flashy, but they were getting the results week in, week out, and they were solid enough at the back. And as I say, Chris Wilder got the best out of those players. Now, coming into the new season, of course, they've got rid of Chris Wilder. It's always going to be a big change. Bringing in Ruben, which will take a little bit of time to adapt. He's the man that the owners kind of wanted. But then you look at the situation, the personnel. Ruben has come out that he's not happy with the transfer situation at all. Like, sounded very frustrated in his last interview, and you can't really blame him with the kind of personnel, as I say, that was in that Sheffield United team at the back, and it needs to be addressed. Of course, Amahodzic is gone, which is such a big miss for Sheffield United in the centre-half position, but then it's as well as that. I think in front of the defence, having a player like Vinny Souza, who can just eats everybody up. He was such a physical central defensive midfielder who could win the ball so much and also progress the ball forward as well. He was decent on the ball. He had that kind of physicality that Sheffield United, that made Sheffield United so hard to be. Having a player like him who people just couldn't simply dribble around was such a big asset to Sheffield United last season. Then you're looking at it this season. This is their first game against Bristol City, which I wanted to talk about, but you have City Peck, who's obviously not the kind of same physical level at all as a Vinny Souza. Obviously a little bit of a different system that they're kind of playing. Obviously Hamer now in a central position, which Hamer on the left, I mean, a lot of people complained it wasn't really his natural position on the left, but there's no doubt in that back end of the season, second half of the season, that Hamer was so far clear of any play. He got Championship Player of the Season for a reason. I do worry about Hamer, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in the video, but as I say, Ruben Sellers was frustrated with the transfer situation, and when you look at that back line, you can't really blame him for being very frustrated because you've got Reece Norrington Davis, and please, I'm a QPR fan. If this guy ends up signing for QPR, I mean, I just can't. I won't be able to put it into words. I mean, Sheffield United fans will be thanking QPR for taking him off their hands. But diabolical centre-back performance. As far as centre-back performances I've seen in recent times, it was genuinely one of the worst centre-back performances I've ever watched. So please, QPR, don't sign him. But as I say, he's kind of a left-back and can play centre-back as well. Not really playing in his 100% natural position. Now, I felt kind of bad for Tyler Binden with Norrington Davis, and just a shambolic display. The guy's only 20 years old. It was his first game coming into Sheffield, first game in the Championship. It was always going to be difficult for him, and he did get an absolute baptism of fire against that Bristol City team. And Saruki as well. I like Saruki. He's obviously a very fast player, but defensively, definitely he is found wanting quite a bit as well. Harrison Burrows was poor in the match, but we know his kind of quality, and yeah, he was really impressive last season. Was one of Sheffield United's better players. And Michael Cooper didn't have a good game in that game, but we know the kind of quality he's got. If it wasn't for James Trafford, everyone will be talking about Michael Cooper a lot more than what they were. It was just that James Trafford was in the division, and you know, he's gone to Man City now, and that kind of says it all about the quality of him. But Michael Cooper then was the next best keeper in the Championship by far, in my opinion. So the quality's there in terms of those two positions, but the centre-back position I was looking at, I remember after the game, I was like, they must have injuries. They must have some serious. Obviously, I know they lost Amahodzic, but I thought they must have some other players ready to come in. They had Jack Robinson who came in, who was injured. They kind of had to bring him after 60 minutes because Reece Norrington Davis was performing so poorly. And other than that, they have literally got nobody. They've got that young lad who came in, who we'll talk about in the cup game in a second. But it was, the kind of lack of depth in the centre-back position is seriously concerning. So they are going to be needing bodies into that centre-back position. Ruben says that there's no players coming in before the second match of the season. And I look at that centre-back situation, and it's a diabolical situation that Sheffield United are in. And as I say, you've lost a physical presence then behind them to protect players like that who, you know, centre-backs, Jack Robinson isn't, I mean, Sheffield United fans don't really rate him too highly. A player like Vinny Souza just makes up that in terms of the protecting the back line, and you don't really get that same kind of quality with a player like City Peck, who's a very good player, don't get me wrong, and I've been really impressed with City Peck since he's come into the side. I think he's for a young player to come straight into that Sheffield United side, as a player that's come through at Sheffield United, he's a really good player, technically a very good player, and works really hard in the side. But as I say, he's just quite simply just not a Vinicius. And then you've got kind of them two in front of him, Heyman, O'Hare. O'Hare obviously more of an attacking player. Gustavo Heyman the same these days as well. I just felt City Peck has such a big role in that match, and they're going to need more additions in terms of a defensive midfielder and in terms of at least a couple of centre-backs, at least two more centre-backs to come in. I don't want to take anything away from Bristol City in that game, by the way, because I thought they were fantastic. Scott Twine, Emma Reese really did occupy the defenders really well and running in behind. Mehmeti as well is always a good player on his day, is such a good player to watch. McCrory at right wing back was unbelievable as well. And Bristol City tactically from Struber were just fantastic, and really it was a tactical masterclass from Struber, which the Bristol City players executed perfectly. But that's not saying that Sheffield United could have done a lot better. I think Louis Barry came in and he showed flashes of what he can do. Obviously, he's on that left side, which takes away from Hamer, who was playing there last season. As I said, I thought Louis Barry was decent for his debut. I thought he made a few decent contributions and looked dangerous at times. And I'm sure he'll be a good signing over the course of the season. And Tyrese Campbell's still a very good striker. We saw last season was really good in front of goal, and I think it was probably his best scoring season last season in terms of his minutes per goal or whatever. Yeah, high scoring season, and as well as that, he didn't start every single match as well. So Tyrese Campbell was very decent last season. I'm sure he'll be very good again this season. A very, very good striker at this level. And I'm not saying, Callum O'Hare can create chances. I think he's decent. I think he's a good championship player. Is he a top championship player? I'm not so sure. And Brooks as well, he's okay. I think he's a decent player. He's obviously got a bit of pace. But in terms of, for a team that wants to be challenging for promotion, I'm not sure if Brooks should be starting week in, week out in that side. But we'll just go on to the next game. As I said, that was so disappointing. But then we go on to the Birmingham City game, where this is where I have my kind of issue with Sheffield United in terms of their squad depth. Because if we just pull up the lineups here, if I can actually find it, if we pull up the lineups here, Sheffield United, of course, made changes. And this is the guy who came in who made a mistake for the goal. I don't want to dig him out too much. He's only a young lad. But obviously, it was an opportunity for him to kind of stake his claim. If he put in a good performance, he could have got himself an appearance, because obviously that centre-back spot is very much up for grabs. Didn't really take that opportunity in a game where Sheffield United did get absolutely battered by Birmingham. Now, Sheffield United made a lot of changes, don't get me wrong. What did they do? They literally changed the vast majority of their team. I think it was only O'Hare that started the first game, so there's a lot of changes for Sheffield United. Jack Robinson is obviously an experienced player. Sam McCann. Then you look at the kind of backup players that came in, like where is the quality here? And then like Birmingham City, they didn't make as many changes as Sheffield United, yes, but they did make 6 changes. They changed over half their team. And you look at that team, and Birmingham will be happy to rock up with that team week in, week out in the Championship, and it's a very good team that can compete. So the problem is, where is the depth in this Sheffield United team? I think Sumara came in, who was a player that they brought in on loan, I believe, which he could be the kind of Vinny Souza replacement. I'd imagine he put in a decent enough performance. Didn't think he was unbelievable. As I say, it's so difficult in a game like that up against Birmingham City, where they literally did get dominated. He could maybe be that Vinny Souza replacement that probably will end up coming into the side eventually. But as I say, that kind of team there is not a great backup team. And Tom Cannon, I spoke about him a little bit on my TikTok, but I think he needs to do so much more. Like, Sheffield United spent a lot of money. I'm not sure on the exact price. Was it close to £10 million? Something like that anyway. And this guy has offered absolutely nothing in that Sheffield United team. He scored that one goal in the game against Burnley. But as I say, I think for a guy who's... don't get me wrong, that game against Birmingham, he very much struggled to get service, of course, which is always going to happen. But you've got to make more. Like, you've got to be, if you're feeding off scraps, you've got to try and make something of it. You've got to try and at least make the ball stick when it comes up. You've got to be pressing defenders. You've got to be occupying defenders, which I just don't think Tom Cannon has simply done. Even when he goes out wide, he's ineffective out wide. He's ineffective up top. I know he's a good finisher, and he's shown that at Stoke, but I've been so concerned with his performance at Sheffield United, and I really do worry like this guy could be a complete flop. It's obviously very soon to write him off, but I've been so disappointed with Tom Cannon. It's very disappointing because in the first half of the season for Stoke, I watched him play at QPR and he was so impressive against us, and he just looks like an absolute shadow of his former self. That was the player that was at Stoke. But as I say, I was kind of saying the depth in this Sheffield United team here is non-existent, comparing it to a team at Birmingham City who are expected to be up there as well. Sheffield United, a lot of people obviously predict to be right up there come the end of the season. Their depth just isn't there compared to a Birmingham City, compared to probably a Southampton, compared to an Ipswich. These kind of teams that does make me worry a little bit about Sheffield United going forward. And with the manager as well already getting frustrated, Ruben Sellers, I do feel bad for him because, as I say, he's not really been given he's not even given the tools to be really successful at Sheffield United, but that's not to say that he's not got enough out of the players so far. So for me, it does kind of have it written all over where could at some point maybe Chris Wilder make that return to Sheffield United. It feels like Wilder left on good terms. Obviously wish the club well, and obviously still think so highly of the club. You never know, in a couple of months' time, if things continue to go wrong with Sheffield United, who would they call? It would most likely be Chris Wilder. And then a look at the fixtures that they've got coming up. Swansea away, Millwall at home. They're not easy games. Middlesbrough away. These are teams that could be up there come the end of the season chasing playoffs. A lot of people have predicted Swansea to be up there, even though they have started the season pretty poorly. Millwall people have got in the playoffs, and Borough as well. They always are up there come the end of the season. So they've got some difficult games coming up in the future. And Ruben has got to turn things around very, very quickly in that side. As I say, the quality is still there. The question is, will Gustavo Hamer kind of be there at the end of this transfer window? You know, if Sheffield United are still struggling come the end of the window, could a team on deadline day maybe go in from a Premier League team, a lower down Premier League team? Like, I think if you sell Gustavo Hamer, I think the season you may as well call it off, because this guy he's the main guy for Sheffield United. He's the guy who makes things happen, and that goal that he scored against Birmingham City just shows his ability. The fact that he even has the cheek to even go for that, let alone put that into the roof of the net over James Beadle, it shows the quality this guy's got and the confidence this guy's got. And I've said this before, like, if this guy didn't look like he had a few too many pies, he would be on a Premier League club's books right now. I think it's the fact that maybe he doesn't look like the kind of typical Premier League player in terms of his physique. It sounds a bit harsh, but I think that's just the way it is. And as I said, I think Premier League 2 maybe would have gone in for him by now. But I think Gustavo Hamer, it's a great opportunity for him. He'll be 28 years old. Time might be running out for him to get more moves to the Premier League and play Premier League football again. Could a team like Leeds United maybe go in from a lower down Premier League club? He absolutely has the quality, but as I say, does he have the kind of legs in a Premier League physical match for 90 minutes to go week in, week out in the Premier, which is such a demanding league? The Championship is very physical, of course, but the Premier League we've seen for Championship clubs, it's just another step up. I would love to see Gustavo Hamer in the Premier League to see how he kind of copes with the Premier League in a team that could be competitive in the Premier League, because he's only really played for Sheffield United in the Prem, where, of course, they're always going to be up against it last time they were in the Premier League. And he was still pretty decent, to be fair, when he was in the Premier League, I thought, when he had that season in the Prem. What did he do? He's still at 4 goals, 6 assists in the Premier League for a poor side. So I really do feel like he deserves an opportunity to play for a Leeds in the Premier League, an Everton in the Premier League, someone like that. I'm surprised hasn't gone in for him. And if Sheffield United are still struggling come the end of the window, and Gustavo Hamer might just think, you know, I've not seen enough signings at the back, I don't think there's enough quality in this side to get ourselves promoted, could he be kind of wanting to get that move at the end of the transfer window and maybe have a conversation and maybe end up getting sold at the end of the window? So I still think there is that up in the end. I don't think Sheffield United are out of the woods in terms of keeping hold of Gustavo Hamer. So let me know what you think. If you're a Sheffield United fan, let me know your thoughts on the current situation. Of course, as well, it's only 2 games. You can't jump to conclusions too quickly. But as I say, if signings aren't going to be made, then I am a little bit concerned about this Sheffield United team going forward. So if you enjoyed the video, drop a like down below. Subscribe to the channel. It takes 1 second. It'd be very greatly appreciated. If you're a Sheffield United fan, do hit that subscribe button. We do daily content talking about your teams every single day. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one.